So Susan gave me a wonderful introduction, and I appreciate that. Thank you. This is one of the ways that I try to give back. I have been focused on LinkedIn as a development tool for 10 years. And I've been invited to speak at Case District 3 down south. State Street Global Advisors advised me, they should advise me, speak at a development conference for their clients in Boston, and LinkedIn was my topic. A couple years ago here in the Chicago area, you have a National Philanthropy Day, very heavy with healthcare focus, but I was on the program to give a LinkedIn training program to our colleagues in the nonprofit sector in Chicago. I've spoken at PPP, that's not an overly hydrated person, but the National Conference for Gift Planning. And then also one of the things we do, even though I'm wearing orange today, can I get a little like warm love for wearing the orange today? You don't realize how hard it is. I mean, this orange was in the back of the closet because we work in the shadows of a little university called Clemson. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They have very high self-esteem these days. I don't know what it is. All those orange foam figures that we're #1, they are #1. So we can't wait for the season to start. I hope somebody beats them right away. That's not being recorded, is it? Golf. Yes, it's golf. And I've also spoken at, we do, when we're not arguing with Clemson people, we do have a corporate and foundation relations program that brings ACC and SEC colleagues together to talk about best practices, and I've focused on LinkedIn with that. So here are the goals today, kind of standing in front of the part of the program here. These are our 4 goals, and we're going to try to achieve them between now and when you break at 10. To illustrate the power of LinkedIn, to engage alumni around the world, to highlight best practices for free membership, as well as Business Plus. We're going to be ecumenical today. Everybody wins. We're going to offer practical techniques that development officers may utilize to secure appointments with major gift and annual fund prospects. We're going to suggest a strategy to integrate LinkedIn data to your private database. And we're hoping to get at least 1 thumbs up from Susan Lee today, so I need your help with that. I mean, my self-esteem is really going to go downhill if I don't get at least 1 thumbs up by the end of the program. So I always like to start with a slide like this, and I know all the millennials in the room know exactly what each one of these icons represents. I have no idea what 80% of these icons represent. I don't even know. Every time I go to look for one of these slides, there's new icons about social media. And the main point that I want to make, when it comes to our work in development, there are lots of social media apps, and all of them are wonderful. But I think the only one that really helps us do our job better is LinkedIn. And I think one of the reasons, now some people might say, now I've had good success with Facebook. I've never been able to differentiate between Donald the professional and Donald the personal side. And I think every time you try to walk that fine line between this is my professional life and this is my personal life, it gets a little messy. What I like about LinkedIn is it's exclusively professional. What I'm promoting myself and what I do for the betterment of the University of South Carolina is unique to my professional. I stay in my lane, and when I'm engaging USC alumni, it's all about their professional life. That's just the point I want to make on that. So I want to tell you a little story. I know each of us are storytellers, and I want to tell you about the grand experiment that I did in May 2007. So LinkedIn's been around since May 2003, and at the time I was in that hybrid role of development and alumni relations for the business school at Rollins College. It's a little upstart college. It's been around since 1885. It's not been around since 1867, so hopefully they'll be able to make it. And one of my colleagues came into my office, and when you're in that hybrid role of development and alumni relations, right, your work's never done. Your work's never done with development. If you add on an alumni function, then it's even more of a challenge. But are you using LinkedIn to engage the business school alumni? I said, what's LinkedIn? And she showed me the site, and we looked at it a little bit. And so on a Friday afternoon, May 2007, I did a little experiment. And I sent 10 invitations to the first 10 business school alumni that I saw on page 1. Just introduce myself, Donald Hale, Development Alumni Relations. Push send on a Friday afternoon. Saturday, Sunday, Monday afternoon, there's a knock on my door, and a woman came forward, and she says, Mr. Hale in? And the assistant said, yes. May I say who's calling? And she said, my name is Amber. He sent me a LinkedIn invitation on Friday, and I was in the area, so I thought I'd stop by. Well, that didn't take long. I thought this was virtual reality. Now I have somebody outside my door. So the interesting thing, where Rollins is located is in Winter Park, Florida. Amber, at the time, was based in Seattle, and she was using her MBA degree to lead the marketing efforts of the Space Needle. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. One of the things the dean wanted to make sure is that if you earn a business degree from Rollins, that your passport is going to be good beyond the 407 in Orlando. So head of marketing, Space Needle in Seattle. And then we were talking for a few minutes, and she said, would you mind if my husband joined us? I said, well, sure, where is he? Well, he's out in the hallway. Okay, well, let's open that door and bring the husband in here, right? He might be wondering what's going on in here. Development officers are in present, right? So then I had a chance to meet her husband, Rick, who worked at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and still does. Now, I can't make this stuff up. I'm not that smart, right? But the very first time I used LinkedIn, and just to introduce myself as a development officer in a business school, in 3 days' time, I was able to intersect with 2 alumni, both of whom are using their MBA degree in very significant ways. Would the admissions office be happy if I had a referral on that? And the cool thing with this, because don't tell anybody, but sometimes at our universities, our records are not connected. I know this would never happen at the University of Illinois, but we didn't have, Amber and Rick connected in the system. So that is not a secondary benefit when it comes to the cultivation of your alumni. So from that, at the business school, when I told the story to the dean, he liked it even more than you did. And he said, we're all in. We want city clubs in 10 major markets around the country. I want you to use LinkedIn to build those markets, because we already know our private database is flat. We need to fix it, and we need to fix it quickly. So there are 9 listed here now. We had one in Phoenix. I think they're still looking for a new president. As soon as they have a president, we'll be back and running in Phoenix. But I was able to leverage that in 10 different markets without ever really leaving my desk to get started. And then we would kind of showcase a faculty member or do something in each of those markets that would be more of a magnet, because just having refreshments with Donald is really not that interesting or fun. But if I can bring one of my faculty members or a dean or somebody to showcase the college, that's more well received. One of the other things that came about is not so secondary benefit of using LinkedIn. Again, this is with the business school, is I started receiving inquiries from alumni. Could I facilitate introductions between other alumni? So 2 quick examples. One day I came into work, and an alumnus in Los Angeles sent me an email and said, I see you're connected to one of our alumni in San Francisco. Would you facilitate an introduction? Because I'm interested in exploring an opportunity in San Francisco, and I'm hoping that as an alumnus that I'll be able to get the scouting report to know, is this something that I should explore? What's their culture like? Is this something that would be worth me moving my family to look at? And so through LinkedIn, without ever leaving my desk in Winter Park, facilitating career networking between an MBA alumnus in Los Angeles and an MBA alumnus in San Francisco. It also happened when, it feels like I'm getting louder and louder in my head. I hear voices. We also had the opportunity to do this remotely in Germany. So a woman who had an MBA degree in Frankfurt said, I'm in transition right now. Can you do anything to help me? I've been doing this long enough where the answer was, I wish I could help you, but I can't push a button to find where my alumni are in Frankfurt. Now, I could pull a search, cross-reference Rollins MBA alumni in Frankfurt. I found another alumnus who specialized in marketing and facilitated a virtual introduction between an unemployed alumnus in Frankfurt and one that's working in the field that that person desires. One quick testimony, and I think each of you, if you're doing development, you're probably wired in a similar way as I am. Whenever you reach out for somebody for an appointment and that alumnus tells you they're in transition, step forward. Don't step back. Step forward. Take the appointment. Host them for coffee. Host them for lunch. Host them for dinner. You will do more to build the brand of the University of Illinois when you stand by somebody in transition than you will when you're applauding somebody that's at the top of the pyramid. Don't step back, step forward. So a couple people that are colleagues of mine at different times have said, I don't know if I want to invest in LinkedIn. You know, social media, it's like here today, gone tomorrow, poof, right? That all changed when a little company named Microsoft acquired LinkedIn on December 8th, 2016. Who thinks LinkedIn's going away now? I don't. Who thinks the bandwidth of LinkedIn is going to grow? I do. If that's your partner, if you think it's good now, I think it's only going to get better over time. So here's the current footprint. One of the reasons I show this slide is there are over 500 million professionals with a LinkedIn profile right now. The United States is not the majority partner. 138 million of the profiles are in the United States. That tells us, for our colleagues in international, this product is growing faster internationally than it is in the United States. This isn't unique to the playground of Northern California. This thing's popping globally in more than 20 different languages. So that's, you know, when we think globally as a university and we say we're a global citizen and we want this for our students, we need tools for the students. And this is one of the ways that our students can help with their career development anywhere in the world and leverage the University of Illinois brand. Here's some of the other strongholds for LinkedIn around the world. And just a couple of metrics. I kind of enjoy reading investor relations. I don't know if anybody else likes reading investor relation pages, but that's what I do to relax. So LinkedIn operates the world's largest professional development on the internet with more than 500 million members in over 200 countries. Professionals are signing up to join LinkedIn at a rate of more than 2 new members per second. 2 new members per second? Wow. There are more than 40 million students and recent college graduates on LinkedIn. They are LinkedIn's fastest growing demographic. Ding, ding, ding. This is how LinkedIn makes their money. So talent solutions for our colleagues in talent management. Yes, this is their primary tool, over 623 million. Marketing solutions, 175 million. And premium subscriptions is growing fast, 162 million in revenue. So you are here. I did this with the team in Chicago, and it was like, today's July 31st, and it's 1:30. No. But we have a reason why we're doing this. It didn't go over well with them either. I was just hoping it'd be fun. I just like that graphic. I'm like, we need to have a "you are here" graphic. You know how you go to the park? So how did we get here? How did we arrive here? And this is one of the reasons Susan kept me around, is because I'm really gifted when it comes to self-evident truths. I'm really good at those. As much as we celebrate data mining, business intelligence, and analytics at both public and private universities, we are still reliant on self-reported data, right? I wanted to use the word overly reliant, but then my colleagues in advancement services get upset, and then I don't get any holiday cards. So I'm just going to say reliant. We're just going to leave it there. We're a little reliant on that. And even when we do run our analytics on our alumni, we have incomplete fields when it comes to employer, location, business, job title, seniority level, length of tenure at their employer. We're not seeing the full snapshot. So we can run that program over and over again, but if the fields are underpopulated, we're not going to get a better outcome. And historically, and I double-checked this with my colleagues in annual giving, and for those of you that specialize in annual giving, historically, if we don't confirm the home address and preferred email within the first 5 years of graduation, we may have lost them for decades to come. I don't really, I mean, I feel like that's overstating it, but you probably have come across records that have been dormant for a long time. And it's a bad feeling. It makes us sad. But if we don't capture those alums in those first 5 years, it's probably, they could just having another chapter. So why do DoDs love LinkedIn? That's really why I'm here, right? The data is verified by the alumnus. We like that. The emails never bounce because everyone's on the same server. This is something where I just, speaking with our colleagues in talent management, for all of us that have an EDU in our domain, there's been a correction in for-profit education where their censuses are going down, and so their marketing efforts are ramped up, and they have EDU in their domain. What does that mean for us? It means the spam filters at corporations around the world are shrinking what's getting through, particularly on first-time entries. So if you have EDU and that's your first entree to intersect with a corporation, it may not be getting through, not because you don't represent the University of Illinois, but because of all the other people that have EDU in their domain. If you send an invitation on LinkedIn, you're on the same server around the world. You don't have to lose sleep on whether or not that arrived. The site confirms employer, job title, seniority level. I love the corporate hyperlinks to be able to confirm the business address. In markets like Chicago, a lot of times people are based at the headquarters. And to be able to go click, 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 and get right to where you need to without doing any keying is really a benefit. The profiles include degrees from other universities. So the professional schools have the benefit of partnering with the registrar office to see where somebody went before they arrived. But if your alumnus started at Illinois and then went on for advanced degrees elsewhere, we don't always get to capture that. So LinkedIn helps to compensate for that so we can know how many alma maters we're speaking to on our visit. The current photo of the alum on the app makes for easier introductions, right? How many times have we heard ourselves saying, look for me, I'll be the professional in Starbucks. Oh, how long is it going to take for that to be connected? That we're going to go around to every table and interrupt oatmeal and raisins and everything else and say, if I can hold up this, I'm pretty sure I can find you. There's no such thing as a cold call anymore. Have people thought about this? As much time as we spend reflecting on, our prospects' website and what their, professional footprint is, they can look at us as well. And so one of the things we talked about with the Chicago team, and I encourage you to think about, what does your profile say about you? And would that profile be one where I would be interested in meeting with you, or would it make me a little nervous? And we'll revisit that in a little bit later. And I think one of the points we want to make today is the difference between an active platform and a dormant account is a strategy. I'm still working on a strategy that works for me. Each of you have to figure out what strategy is going to work best for you, whether you're in a unit or central, international. But there is a strategy for you that once you land on it, it's going to become a powerful tool. This is your census, as far as I can tell. 285,000 profiles around the world, 262,000 in the United States, 22,000 in international. I wasn't able to find all of the international people, but I found more than 20,000, so some people are even farther reach than we think, but we'll keep working. Here are your top 10 major markets in terms of what the census is on LinkedIn. This isn't your overall census, this is just your census on LinkedIn. Chicago, Urbana-Champaign, San Francisco, New York, St. Louis, LA, DC, Seattle, Denver, Boston. Any surprises there? Okay. Here's your top 25, 11 through 25. Dallas, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Phoenix, Houston, San Diego, all the way through the list. Towards the end, I took some liberties with Florida since I used to live there, and I blended Tampa, Orlando, and Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. I was joking with our colleagues in Chicago that once you get to South Florida and everybody's driving 95 on 95, you might as well just keep going to Fort Lauderdale and West Palm. Just take the whole territory, it'll be fine. And Raleigh-Durham, that's a good market for a lot of people. I know we're in meetings at the University of South Carolina to try to build our presence at the Research Triangle. It's only 4 hours from us, but if you have people in Raleigh-Durham, that's probably a good market for you. This is your global footprint. This represents more than 20,000, I think 20,700 of the 22,000. China, UK, Korea, Canada, India, Taiwan. Any surprises at the top of the list? Brazil, Germany, Australia, Singapore, France, Hong Kong, Spain, Japan, and Poland. I was actually thinking Poland was going to be a bigger number because of the high concentration of Polish persons in Chicago. I thought that was one of the largest contingencies of Polish Americans outside of Poland, but it's okay. And then you can see the rest of the countries represented. And it's not a typo. There's a three-way tie between Argentina, Israel, and Denmark. I thought that was so cool. I kept running it over and over again, thinking that I introduced an error. That's just the way it is. All right, so when you look at your profiles, a lot of you have seen this. This is the University of Illinois main page in terms of where your snapshot is. And when you click on that, there's a lot of tools you can use to kind of sort where your alumni are. So this is the main census. Each of those links represents a hyperlink. So if you're targeting an employer, or you're targeting an industry, you're targeting a market, it'll auto-populate based on the keywords that you focus on. This is an extenuation of that from main campus, where the key markets, companies, and industries are. Of course, the business school has their own page, and they have all the same demographics that are unique to business, where their major markets are, industries, and each one of these, every time you click, I was a little afraid to do a dynamic presentation today because it could crash and burn. So these are all static slides, but if you were to click on any one of these, it'll populate based on your interests. Law has their own site as well, and you can cross-reference their major markets and employers. These are your top 10 key industries. Computer software is number one. Any surprise there? Higher ed, financial services, information technology and services, law, marketing, hospitals, civil, mechanical, industrial, accounting. You guys have a pretty good accounting program, I hear. And architecture. These are the industries 11 through 20. I guess you have a couple of insurance companies in the state. Red team and a blue team. Banking, pharmaceuticals, human resources, medical practice, biotechnology, all the way through. Any surprises on this list? And all the way through to the top 30. I know as development officers, I have my favorites. I kind of like oil and energy. I like medical devices, defense and space. Some of my personal favorites. So let's have a little talk about, and I thought I did pretty good on the orange and blue here. It's not quite perfect, so we'll have to take 5 points off. But I know that this has been a conversation on campus about free membership versus premium. Free, premium. Has anybody been involved in any of those conversations? Any debates? Okay, so we're going to provide you with a foundation to be able to discuss this on both levels. I'm not going to, recommend one way or the other. That's for your supervisor and leadership to decide how it's handled. But I am going to try to contrast these two and not make any opinions, okay? This is a neutral presentation. So what do we like about free platform? The price is right. Is that show still on? I don't have time to watch daytime TV, but the price is right. One key point with free, if you already know who you're trying to reach, that is so helpful, right? So if you already have more prospects than heaven and earth can keep up with, and you're using this as a tool to do some data integrity and verification, the free is probably going to be fine because it can help make sure that you're driving to the right office and not the previous employer 3, 5, 6 years ago. Verifying employment and education is always good. And you can verify service on boards. One of the things I've noticed on LinkedIn more recently is they're trying to promote, giving back to the nonprofit community. There are 2 fields that you can sort where either you and your profile or people you're trying to reach, are they interested in serving on a board? Are they interested in meaningful volunteerism? I think that's the word they use, meaningful volunteerism. And as more and more professionals are checking, I would be interested in a board, or I would be interested in meaningful volunteerism, that may create a path for you if you represent an entity that has advisory boards, or you can partner with colleagues that do. So how can I benefit from a free membership on LinkedIn? So just for fun, how many people have free LinkedIn? Can I see the hands? You're the majority partners. Okay, and the remaining folks, do you have premium or are you still on the bench? Okay, so we have a couple premium. All right, so good. So I prepared appropriately, so the free people are going to take over the day. So what do we want to do? If we have free membership, we want to focus on converting a second connection to a first. We want to circle back with the first connections for a visit. We want to be prepared to provide a meeting agenda. And we want to click on the LinkedIn app to facilitate first-time meetings. So all of this is possible with free. So this is what I do. This is my voice. This may or may not work for you. But if I identify somebody that I want to reach out to, I will send them a first-time message. I'm not going to send them just a generic standard. I'm going to send them a message like this. I rely on this site to try to keep up with the alumni who are thought, industry, and community leaders. I would like to invite you to join my professional network. Donald Hale, System Vice President. Okay, think about what we're trying to do here. When you're sending an invitation from second connection to first, you're limited to 300 characters. You can't introduce a hyperlink. You really don't have room to put your signature in there. So you have to be very, very efficient with your time. What I also like to think about, and the world is this way. This is, again, another self-evident truth. We have to give our alumni and friends a reason to connect with us, and we have to do it in about 15 seconds or less, right? Because if we're just in a queue somewhere, Donald Hale's in the queue, and somebody else is trying to network them for business development, and an entrepreneur, and other classmates. We're just one of many in a line, right? So how much time are the alumni and friends going to give us to be able to look and review whether or not I should connect? I try to think about get in and get out, give them a reason in 15 seconds or less. Secondly, let's say if you were to do an assignment, one of the things I do with our team at USC, I just did a program like this for our colleagues at the University of South Carolina last month, and I would say, think about if you were a fantasy football team, right? There's probably 1 or 2 of you that enjoy fantasy sports. When you're in a fantasy football league, you're one owner and there's 11 other people, right? So you get to pick once. Maybe you pick the Bears quarterback in the first round. That would be a wonderful choice, right, if you knew which one to pick. And then you have to wait, 11 picks or 23 picks before you get to pick again. If you're working on LinkedIn and you figure out who would be the best people to connect with in my unit, my university, our center, you get to send these invitations to everybody, right? That's not under management, right? You get to send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way through. So if you've done your homework to know that you're not reaching out to somebody that's under management, let's say you send 50 invites out, you should be getting about 20 yeses. You should be, the under-over is 40% are going to say yes just because you asked nicely. Okay? And then you figure out, once of those 20, I would send them a message like this: thank you for joining my professional network. As much as we enjoy virtual networking, we benefit from actual connections. Even when you think about our own networking, what's the last thing I want to hear after I connect with somebody? It's crickets. I like crickets when I'm camping. I don't like crickets when I'm networking and trying to get appointments, right? So this gives a way to kind of say, and then I try to be specific about, when can I see you? When can we get in front? And then sometimes people might say, you know, what is the meaning of this? What are you coming for? And so you have to be prepared to have a meeting agenda, right? Don't step back, step forward. I know your time is valuable. The purpose of this meeting will be, 1, to learn about you and your role with your employer, to listen for your alumni connections, to provide a brief update about the university, the college, the school, the athletic program. My portion of the meeting will only take 15 minutes. Thank you for considering this possibility. Okay, what am I doing there? Every single one of you that's a development officer is doing 1, 2, and 3 every single time, right? That's not revolutionary. That's standard, okay? The 15 minutes, I love having this conversation with my colleagues back in Columbia because, like a lot of campuses, historically, we've invested heavily on personal visits, right? And I know that may be changing here at Illinois. But think about, in the historic model, personal visits was regarded like way up here, email, phone, kind of down here. And if you're doing qualification, at least on our campus, if I get 15 minutes with a prospect face-to-face versus, you know, an email or a phone call, I'm going to take those 15 minutes every time, right? So the app is very helpful if you have to meet high-ranking officials from the Chicago office and you're meeting for the first time. This is very, very helpful. John looks pretty much just like he does today. We can't quite get the flower in. You might have to update. But the reason I put this slide in there, I've been doing this long enough where I can remember we used to charge out the door with like 30 pages of manila folders for every single prospect. And heaven forbid you had to repack or unpack, you know, with your suitcase or your travel bag. And then if you took the wrong folder on the visit and you have 30 pages of what you don't need until 3 o'clock and it's 9 o'clock. But this is so helpful because this truly does allow us to be paperless, right? If I'm connected with this person, or even if I'm not connected with them, and I can look up their profile and see what they look like, and instead of looking for the professional in Starbucks and tripping into everybody eating their oatmeal at 9 o'clock, I can just focus on John and engage. And you know what? That's powerful too. Remember, this is a first-time visit, and sometimes we're a little less than confident on our first-time visit. If I walk right up to John and say, I'm Donald Hale from the University of Illinois, happy to meet you, doesn't that kind of have like the right, you know, show him the guns? Rather than like, John, you know, like, who wants to meet with that guy if you can't find John? Where's John? So, I hear you have a new basketball coach. It looks like he's going to be good personal friends with the officials here in Big Ten country. So one of the things I like to mention at this point is I, at the University of South Carolina, and I'm sure at the University of Illinois, we do not want shadow databases, right? So we don't want all this activity in LinkedIn not to be mapped out in your private database. So who can give us some inspiration about teamwork? Coach Smith. Coach Smith's going to help with this. Coach Smith says, be a good team player. Can you hear Coach Smith saying this? Cross-reference the data system to make sure that when you're reaching out on LinkedIn that you're not contacting somebody under management. Enter your attempt to reach a prospect in the system. Document your visit, just like you would ordinarily. And then if this is somebody that goes from outside your portfolio, you qualify them in person, and they're worthy of being added to your portfolio, then you're following the best practices that are already in place. Now, we'll have a little talk about premium for those who may be looking at that, and I know that's an ongoing discussion. If you've never had premium before, it's $59.99 a month. I think they have an incentive that if you buy an annual membership, you might be able to get like 10% off on that. So why would anybody in the world want to do premium membership? So it allows you to see who's looking at your profile. So we had this conversation with your colleagues in talent management earlier today. There's some people, not many, but some people get really nervous with this function. I've heard some colleagues on our campus match this with cyber stalking. Cyber stalking is really, really bad, right? People making bad choices that go to jail when cyber stalking is going involved. If talent management is looking at your profile because they think you have some bling and you'd be great to bring to the team at the University of Illinois, that's not cyber stalking. They're paying you a compliment, right? And the same is true with our alumni. If we're looking at our alumni and friends profile and we represent the University of Illinois and we have a business reason to be in front of them, a cultivation reason, a volunteer opportunity, a board service opportunity, these are all legitimate business reasons. We want them to give to our annual fund. We want them to give to major gifts. I like it when I can see people looking at my site because that's part of the evolution from cold call to who am I meeting with. Again, this isn't the site for showing your latest swimwear at the beach. I don't know if you can see that one nun in the back. She's having the best day ever. She's updating her status right now. But these are the photos that are not going to be on LinkedIn, right? So you're not looking at where somebody went on vacation 4th of July. You're only looking at headshots. You're only looking at their curricula vitae. The big reason why people like the premium is for what's called in-mail. With your membership, you receive 15 in-mails per month. And if you don't use them all that month, they'll roll over up to 45. So sometimes like July, I wasn't using a lot of my in-mails. So that 15 will roll over into August so I can have 30. And they're 2.6 times more effective in getting a response. So why is that helpful? A lot of us are swinging for the fences on our visits, right? We're happy to be in front of the rising stars among the Illini Nation, but if we have big goals, 6-, 7-figure goals to reach on our campuses, we're probably swinging for people at the high level to be able to get in front of them. And so it's not really like a peer-to-peer ask in terms of the visit. So sometimes we can use an in-mail. We're not limited to the 300 characters. We can go in a little bit more detail about what we're hoping to accomplish. And it does stand out in the mailbox. And think about this for a second. If you've been in higher education for more than 30 days, you're already losing emails. You're not able to keep up with how many emails are sent in higher education. I don't know if your campus is like our campus. It's just scroll is just going. And at some point, you don't really get to every single email, right? That's happening in corporations, right? The same thing. They can't keep up either. But if you send an in-mail, not only does it stand out in the inbox, but these alpha boys and girls want to clear their email. They remember what that was like 10 years ago when they could clear their email. Now they can't. And so it's something within the high-achieving people. They want to clear those emails, and I think there's a chance they'll reach back. So John gave me a good suggestion in the car yesterday. We got acquainted in that scenic drive from Chicago to Champaign, and to demonstrate what I practice, what I preach. So when I leave here today, I have appointments with alumni at the University of South Carolina this afternoon and tomorrow. I only use LinkedIn to get the appointments. I sent 20 in-mails, and I had 5 appointments as a result of that. Yes?
John, question. When you're on the email on the page,
Yes?
and to the right is a box that says, I think it says more.
Yes?
When you click on that more, then it drops down and gives you 3 or 4 choices. One of them is connect.
Right.
And is that where I'm then having the privilege of using 15 per month?
Okay, so you're asking a good question. I probably should have backed up. There are 4 different premium memberships. The one that I'm discussing today is Business Plus. It's the least expensive of the 4. There's LinkedIn Sales, and there's 2 more I should be familiar with. With the Business Plus, I think it allows you to kind of have less restrictions to be able to communicate directly with your top people. And the more part, I think if you're getting down on your list, you can purchase more. I know that.
On in-mail, you're blocked. See, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so there's in-mail, and then there's another icon where you can send an invitation traditionally. So sometimes it looks like you're blocked, but you have to click on the other logo icon to be able to send them a direct message. But the other thing, if somebody will not be able to receive a connection, LinkedIn caps how many first connections you can have. So if you reach 30,000 first connections, you're no longer able to receive or send first connections anymore. So if you're bumping up against somebody that has 30,000 first connections, they're probably an overachiever, and that's going to be pretty hard to get through. But one of the things that I thought was interesting with this, so 5 out of 20, right? So that's, I'm batting 250. That's probably not Cubs worthy, but I could probably start for the Sox. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I just wanted to see if anybody's listening here. Just wanted to see. Sorry about that. So when you look at these appointments, how many would like to go on these calls today? Are these worthy of your time? Okay. Here's the thing, and this is a little secret. I hope nobody's recording this. These are all going to be first-time visits today. They've never been seen by anybody from the University of South Carolina. John liked one of our little tricks that I worked on. So you have this little pharmaceutical company here in town, AbbVie. Anybody heard of them? Okay, so I was able to get the appointment with the business alum first, and his administrative assistant was so helpful. My family isn't as nice to me as she was, right? She made sure I knew where to go and where to park and all the icons, all this information. And I found that we had another VP that graduated with public health, and I thought, I wonder if she would be as helpful to introduce me to the other VP's assistant. So I sent her back a note and said, you've been amazing and so helpful. Do you know who supports the VP over on the healthcare side? And she sent me the information right away. And I used the connection of a connection to get the assistant to set me up. I love going to 2 visits without moving my car, right? And I'm not even sure which one of those is a better prospect, but hey, once I find out where to park, I'll be able to do 2 qualification visits. And it started with a LinkedIn connection. One of the other little tips that I found that's helpful is if you're sending an in-mail or you're sending an invitation, include your business address, because sometimes what people are doing now is they'll cut and paste that, send it to their assistant, and the assistant will come back to schedule an Outlook or whatever system you're on. I wasn't doing that before, but that's like saving a step, right? So if they read the message, they see my business information, they send me the invitation, then I'm ready to go. These are my best secrets right here. Don't tell anybody. These are the key words that are like magic beans. Magic beans. Owner, billion, patent, philanthropy, retired, SVP. I love SVP. It's not Scott Van Pelt, although I'm down with him. But if you type in president in the title, it's going to give you every president generation from, today all the way back to the Nixon administration. But if you type in SVP, it's going to only populate the people that are highly ranked within the corporate, and those are usually going to be your Fortune 100 companies, let alone anything else. IPO, executive office, founder, entrepreneur, CEO, and chairman. And for our colleagues in international, I wanted to make sure we could play along with our international friends too, right? We can't leave the world out. I mean, come on. The world's a big place. Okay, a couple other benefits. I just used the University of Illinois as an employer, and on premium you can see some demographics. This is really kind of a way to repurpose some of the data that they already have on their talent management and making it available to you in terms of when you're looking at the climate of a business, right? So like Boeing, there's this transition with Boeing. They had some employees that were, let go, and recently, like 6,000, I think. So if you were looking at Boeing now, and all those LinkedIn profiles are getting updated, you're going to see the change in their corporate footprint based on, are they a green arrow up or are they a red arrow down in terms of their hiring tendencies? For companies that are more compact, those greens and reds move rather fluidly. But it's nice to know when you're going on a visit, am I looking at green arrows, good, or am I looking at red arrows, down? Employee distribution of what people do by function. New hires. I heard there's a gentleman named Mr. Benson that joined the team here. Has anybody met him? Right? If your prospect shows up on this page, you don't have to run a research report, right? They're not going to be able to take a snapshot of everybody. They're only going to focus on top leadership. Some persons have asked at USC, what can I do once I have all these first connections? You can export them into an Excel file. It's probably a good idea, particularly if you're in a unit where you want to validate some email addresses. What are preferred email addresses? If you export that, you'll get the name and the preferred email. And that might be something where if you have e-blasts that you share with your prospects from time to time, you might want to make sure that those are the right emails. One quick idea. Now, I know at the Big Ten conference, I heard that they have the latest and the greatest. This is not quite the latest and the greatest. This is the pretty good. So we'll take a little look at the pretty good in terms of how can you integrate private data from LinkedIn or public data into the private database. So we partner with a vendor called Live Alumni, and we turned over 173,000 of our alumni records. And we asked them to look for our alumni on LinkedIn. And one of the things I'm learning is that you don't want to do scraping. You don't want to be acquiring these records in a way that's not lawful or ethical. You want to work with a vendor that's approved to be able to do this. And so out of that 173, we were able to acquire 110,000 University of South Carolina alumni. We did 2 steps of verification to make sure who they were. And so we had a good success rate with 60,000 of those. And then the other 50,000 will continue to do some verification, trying to make sure we have the right names. What we like about this now is that we're bringing in LinkedIn into our private database so that whether you have free, premium, or you're being supported by a colleague, that everybody can see the LinkedIn profile alongside with the private. So on our system, we have a Millennium product, a Blackbaud product, and so when you click on basic data, it has the actual home address, and then we have another field called internet address, and with internet address, we've populated with the 60,000 records that we were able to find a high integrity match. They're now integrated into the private database. So in this particular case, this is one of my prospects who I found on LinkedIn, Dr. Richardson. And now, if I'm working with colleagues, he has an MBA degree from the University of South Carolina, everybody can see the same thing, right? So if I'm partnering with our colleagues in business, or I'm partnering with Principal Gifts, or I'm partnering with gift planning, everybody can see the same thing because it's going to populate with the LinkedIn profile alongside the proprietary data in our private database. So as we wrap up, moving forward, the difference between an active account and a dormant one is a strategy. My strategy might be different than yours, but hopefully we've given you some ideas to think about what can I do to kind of customize and internalize a strategy that will work well for me. And then final thoughts. I know all of you were praying for this slide. Final thoughts. Spend time thinking about what your profile says about you. Is your profile going to appeal more to a recruiter or to a prospect who's considering an introductory visit? What I mean by that, I know all of us, if your fiscal year ended June 30th, many of us went through the evaluation process. I know it's our favorite time of the year, you know, evaluations, holidays, 4th of July. All of the metrics that were measured internally probably really don't matter to our prospects, right? If I had 120 visits and 20 proposals and 1.5 million, yeah, I mean, you can say that to me and I will bow down. That's impressive. But to our prospects, not so much. They don't want to be part of metrics. They want a relationship with you. Number 2, remember that when you're using just your illinois.edu email, that this could be intercepted by spam filters because of the changing marketplace in for-profit education. Historically, we all, the University of Illinois, Big Ten schools, SEC schools, we've used a lot of resources to try to confirm the student affinity codes to verify the student footprint. I look at this more and more as what I call philanthropic paleontology, right? If our prospects have been away from campus for 15, 20, 25 years, is it really going to matter that they were in the drama club at this point? We need to be able to intersect with them where they are now, not where they were then. And one of the things that's particularly sensitive is a lot of times when we were students, we had one set of relationships, and now we have a different set at this point in our adult life. So being able to intersect with people where they are now is critical. And as you think about building your first connection, over time, as you represent the university, your colleges, your schools, and athletics, that algorithm will be working alongside you to suggest people that you might want to network with. And I'm always fascinated in how that works. The same things that apply that if you go to Lowe's Home Improvement Store, on Saturday morning, and then you log on to your phone or your tablet, and all of a sudden, why am I getting all these pop-ups from Lowe's, right? They're using the same technology to try to figure out who you should connect with. And so as you're building the brand for the university and your college, your school, your athletic program, it will introduce some of that same sophistication. So I didn't leave much time for questions. In fact, I only gave us a 2-minute warning. But I thank you for your time and your attention today, and I hope this was helpful.
And I've tended to accept maybe 50% of those. Do you recommend that we accept most of them, the majority of them? Any advice there?
Well, I like that question, and I like it because when you think about what we talked about today, like what is our voice, right? When we're doing outreach, what is our voice? How do we present? How we represent the university? In a similar way, how do we receive other voices is as important, right? That's what we're paid to do. All of you are probably very comfortable representing the university, but how do we make our money? It's the active listening part. So I would think a lot of the things that this staff probably does very well in terms of active listening, we can receive those invitations and think, does this have any remote possibility of being viable, or is this extraneous to who I am? And remember, we just talked about as you build the algorithm, I think if you're using this as a development tool for the University of Illinois, I think there's a benefit to keeping kind of in your lane with the alumni and friends in a way that as you get those suggestions that make sense, you look at that in 15 seconds, say that fits or it doesn't fit. And I think that's part of how each of us preserve our brand, right? If we receive every invitation from everybody that typed our name correctly, well, that's one way of doing things. And maybe if I'm a small business owner and I'm receiving all those invitations to grow my business, that's a different strategy. But we can be selective. We can be selective. And part of our strategy is the same principles that I use to engage when I'm extending the invitation will be the same principles I use to receive. Any other thoughts? Yes.
So it's one thing to do, searches for like business grads, but for the non-degree grants, have you ever done anything with any searches or had any strategies for searching based on affinity as opposed to? And so what I'm thinking about is what.
Right.
So how do I, in looking at your list, certainly I'm going to be looking at higher ed because we know that graduate students are going to be like information technology, probably. How else might we search based on affinity?
Okay, good question. The libraries are among the degree of difficulty, right? Trying to build, an algorithm for friends. One thing we didn't talk about here, but I want to suggest, and it relates to our profiles. So for people that know a lot more than I do about search engine optimization, from what I've read about Google, when Google does their searches, they're running an algorithm that's looking for the first 65 words that define an entity, okay? So why is that important? So in your profile with library and inviting support on behalf of the library, there's a section in each of our profiles where it's summary. And within the summary, take a look at how you define yourself as an advocate for support for the library. And then each of those keywords that you would like to see in somebody else's profile, if they have that in their summary, then you're being deliberate, right? So you may have all your keywords in your head, but if they're not in your profile, they're not going to resonate. And I think it relates to what Susan's point is, how we define ourselves and how we receive invitations. We're an extension of the university. In many cases, we're an extension of the office of the president of the university, or the dean of the university, or the athletic director. And so this is a good time of year to look at what does my summary statement say about me? How many unique keywords can I introduce in a way that will help me identify others? And then when I think about with your role, the nice thing is like the glass is half full in the sense that in many cases, at least at the University of South Carolina, the friends, the non-alumni, in many cases can be the majority partners of philanthropy. In our last campaign that Susan was instrumental in the success of, 60% of the philanthropy in the first $1 billion campaign for the University of South Carolina came from non-alumni. So what I would encourage is, in summer and as you go through, figuring out how you identify the friends of the university for libraries, for athletics, for centers, for career development. And one of the things, and Susan and I had a very enjoyable conversation, strategy session last night. One of the things we're still trying to figure out are parents, right? We've got a lot of work to do on parents. And I think a lot of universities, and the Big Ten it's fascinating where the Big Ten is kind of, you're all raising so much money. You're doing so well that not many people are calling a timeout and saying, what about the parents? Because your overall philanthropy is so successful. But are there parents of current students at the University of Illinois who may share the values of the role of the library in higher education in a way that can become, a pipeline for you down the road. Any other questions before we wrap up? I know you have a full day. Yes, Dave?
Thanks so much for being here. It's really helpful. You spoke a lot about the connection and using that to get the introduction. What I use it more for right now, definitely take up your points, is once I know them well, connecting with them to see their achievements, reach out, maybe through a text, getting close with them. Do you have any, because once you're connected, you're connected forever. So do you have a strategy once they're in your portfolio there, once they're on your LinkedIn, do you reach out to them periodically throughout the year? Do you have anything you do with that?
Yes. One of the fields, I didn't pull it up, but there's, when you look at your header, there's an icon for notifications. So one of the things I do is I look and it'll tell you how many people in your network have a birthday today, right? Saying happy birthday is probably the last politically correct thing we can do without anybody getting offended, right? I say happy birthday to every one of my first connections every single day. I missed yesterday because John and I were having a big conversation and I didn't do it. I just had to say happy belated birthday to some people and happy birthday today. The other thing you can do is when people post, all right, so we didn't talk a lot about that, but when they post and it's related to, hey, looking forward to the opening game, liking, sharing. And the other thing that we can do as development officers, we have tremendous resources for free content, right? So, and athletics is good about this too. What's new and exciting about fall practice and pushing that out? And as people see that you're sharing content that doesn't involve inviting support, you kind of level the playing field that more people are going to be comfortable with that interaction. Because let's say you send 3 things about, Illini football is wonderful, and maybe one related to there's still time for premium seating, or there's still time to be a part of the tailgate, or there's still time to partner with one of your units on a special event. So I think that's a critical point. If they only hear from you when it's time to talk about philanthropy, then that might be a longer conversation. But if you find a way to stay in the rhythm of where your first prospects are, then it doesn't seem foreign to be interacting with them. That good? Well, thank you all for your time and attention today.